On today's episode, sorry, one sec. One sec. Okay, I think I got it. On today's episode, we sit down with the pop icon's pop icon, Rihanna. Later, I'll personally fit in some time to talk personal fitness. I offer some advice to a fan who reached out with a very sensitive, very private, and frankly, very embarrassing problem. Oh boy, this'll be a hoot. Knick knack paddywhack, give a dog my phone. Number, if the dog is single and cute, it's time for Famous Podcast.
Famous Podcast. It's a famous podcast. It's a very, very famous podcast.
The gift that keeps on giving. Welcome to Famous Podcast, where each guest is more famous than the last. I'm your host, Jean-Luc Bouchard, aka the Sweetheart Prince of New York. And on today's episode, stop. Sorry everyone, I'm acting as my own producer today. And I'm also recording on my laptop from the backseat of an Uber. Okay, here we go. As I was saying, on today's episode, we'll find love in a hopeless place, because our guest is none other than singing superstar Rihanna. Ow. Hey driver, maybe try taking those turns a little slower, alright? Sorry folks, I'm currently coming to you from the middle of the woods in upstate New York. Or Pennsylvania. Or Vermont. It's sort of hard to tell. It's somewhere 5 hours out of the city, okay? And it's been an eventful day to say the least. After I snuck out of the hospital to avoid paying my bill, I walked to the nearest payphone to call my producer Debbie so we can have an unfriendly chat about how badly she screwed up editing last week's deeply incriminating episode of Famous Podcast. And after I blew out my vocal cords from screaming at her, and trust me, I screamed real good, Debbie did something entirely unexpected. She did her goddamn job. Fans of the podcast know about my longtime obsession with Rihanna and her perfect music, and that I would do literally anything, no questions asked, to have the chance to interview her for the show. Well, folks, Debbie really came through for once. She made some calls and managed to secure me an exclusive interview with Rihanna at her secret cabin in the woods under a couple conditions. 1. I had to immediately jump into the backseat of the Uber Debbie sent me and not ask where we were going. 2. I had to turn off my phone and not let anyone know where I was going to be all day. And 3, I had to give Debbie an advance on her next paycheck. Well, done, folks. That money will be coming back in multitudes once this interview gets picked up by all the big morning shows. And this is one gift horse whose mouth I will not be examining. Rihanna is exactly the kind of star power I need to steer Famous Podcast back into the fast lane of success. And now all I have to do is wait for the Uber to pull onto some unmarked dirt road, in what I hope is any minute now. Since I've already been in the car for half a day, I didn't want to waste any more time, and I figured I might as well start taping the pre-show. So, while we wait for the dulcet tones of our celebrity guest Rihanna, let's take some time to revisit our landmark health and wellness segment, Cold Sweat.
You're looking kinda tired, you're slouching in your chair, leaving lots to be desired. Is that mayo in your hair? Health and wellness is upon us, that's a promise, not a threat. So grab some quinoa and get real bourgeois, because it's time for Cold Sweat.
Welcome to Cold Sweat, the health and wellness segment of Famous Podcast. Folks, as you've no doubt read by now in People Magazine or Us Weekly, I am one of New York's most eligible and most Jewish bachelors. And now that I'm back on the dating circuit, it's time to turn my dad bod back into a rad bod. On today's Cold Sweat, we'll be talking about working out, which is what my ex-boyfriend Sammy said we weren't. I've always been something of a gym rat, but my re-entry into the crazy world of New York dating has reminded me that I could stand to go more than once a year. I recently matched on Tinder with a woman who asked why I was wearing a John Candy costume in each of my photos, which is actually the third time I've had to field that question since downloading the app. So for your education, dear listeners, I figured I would document in real time the new fitness regimen I've picked up. I'm currently between banks, so I am unable to afford a personal trainer at the moment. But thankfully, the internet offers all the free workout tutorials you could ever need. I googled my way down a rabbit hole and landed on GetSwoleOrDie.net, a training forum for ex-Marine survivalists who believe that civilization is months away from dissolving into anarchy. So not only have I learned a bunch of cool new squats, but I've also learned I need to stock up on military rations and iodine pills before December 2020, or I'm going to be shoveled like human coal into the enormous generator fueling the liberals' wasteland city. Unfortunately, I recently pulled every muscle in my body attempting a workout routine called the meat grinder, and after I regained consciousness, I discovered that several of my joints had fused permanently with my bones, greatly limiting my mobility. So until I can snap those back into place, WebMD suggests I take a break. Or go to the hospital immediately. Either one. Ow! Ah, God damn it! Driver, are you sure you know where we're going? You're taking us into the woods. Fine. I apologize for that, folks, and I'd like to apologize on behalf of my driver as well, but their big bushy beard and novelty black glasses cover most of their face, so it's hard to read their expression in the rearview mirror. Anyway, in keeping with our Rihanna theme, allow me to say that companies better have my money, because it's time for an ad. Ow!
Time for an ad, so give me a beat. Yes, it's time for an ad, cause I need to eat. Oh, it's time for an ad to pay for the show. Yes, it's time for an ad, cause I need the dough.
Today's episode of Famous Podcast is brought to you by Kamali's Coffee, the cafe across the street from my apartment. Do you like your coffee slightly burnt and slightly cheaper than the cafe 2 blocks south of my apartment? Do you like your cakes and cookies to be dry and sour, but half-priced after 5 p.m.? Do you like your Wi-Fi so strong that it reaches all the way to my bedroom if I sit on the windowsill? Then come on down to Brooklyn and check out Kamali's Coffee, where the best part of waking up is not having to travel very far for coffee. Kamali's Coffee is a proud sponsor of Famous Podcast, and I am a proud daily patron of Kamali's Coffee, where I engage in what can only be described as a ceaseless Jim and Pam situation with the owner Kamali. I have received thousands of free coffees from Kamali over the years, made from the poured remains of coffees already thrown in the trash, and although she claims it's out of pity, I know it's because she's picking up the vibes I'm putting down. When I asked Kamali about sponsoring this episode of Famous Podcast, she said she would love to see me do anything that required me to leave her cafe. See what I mean, folks? So why not make your next coffee break a Kamali's coffee break? Just make sure you come by between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m., or 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., because otherwise Kamali's mean wife Destiny will throw sugar packets at you if you try to take too many napkins home. And speaking of home, folks, I'm nearly home plate in the metaphorical game of baseball I've been playing with my career. It's been kept secret until now because of legal obligations, I assume. But I think it's safe to finally tell you that I'm extremely close to sealing the deal on an original online TV series with a major streaming service. I can't name the service just yet, but let's just say that when it comes to original content, they prefer things a bit on the stranger side. My contact at the streaming service is a VP of philanthropy named Rihanna Goodlawn, whose contact info I found after a grueling 3.5 hours on LinkedIn. We've been having an intense back and forth over email, where she's played hardball by pretending like she has nothing to do with the creative team. But after months of relentlessly leaving her messages, and waiting for her outside of her spin class, and waiting for her outside of her son's private school, I have finally convinced Brianna to bring me in for a meeting with the original content department for a formal pitch. This is real, and it is happening tomorrow, folks. That's right, driver. Tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, to be exact. For some reason, my Uber driver finds this very funny. But it's serious business, folks. I know this is the kind of thing that sometimes gets said but doesn't come to fruition. But I am literally staring at the confirmation Google Calendar invite right now. And if I rush and get this Rihanna episode out tonight, That means that I'll have the absolute perfect leverage walking into this meeting in the morning. An exclusive interview with one of America's biggest celebrities is sure to cast a disinfecting light over some of my stickier spots. And although I've built my career on podcasting and would never turn my back on the incredible fans I've made through Famous Podcast, I would literally kill someone to finally get on TV. Hey driver, I think you might wear the same perfume as my producer Debbie. Yeah, it's weird, right? It's a crazy coincidence. Oh well. Anyway, folks, while I wait to emerge from these foreboding woods into what I can only assume is Rihanna's lush cabin estate, let's help someone in need with another round of listener questions.
Are you overwhelmed and overloaded, devoid of stronger stuff? Life is tough, meaning it's too much, but my advice is always just enough.
That's right. If you're unable to solve your own problems, why not push them off onto me instead? Today's listener question comes from Chris in Cleveland.
Hey, Famous Podcast. I struggle with a fear of driving, and I wondered if you had any tips on how to get back out on the road. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, for waking up in the middle of the night to record that question. I applaud your vulnerability here. This is a very common fear. I went through the same phase myself after I ran over 4 of my own pets in the same week. But my father, who is an infamously aggressive driver and a deeply callous man, offered me some advice that got me back on the road. I'd like to share with you the exact words of wisdom he gave me, set to a song in the key of E. Open the dictionary to the word coward, and next to it you'll see a picture of your face. Look in the mirror real close. You don't have ears or a nose. You have feathers instead, 'cause you are a chicken. Chicken. Baka baka bak, you are a chicken. Baka baka bak, Jean-Luc's a chicken. Baka bak, my son is a chicken. If cars are causing you dread, you could ride bikes instead. They're just like cars but uncool, and unsafe and slow too, and you will look like a tool. Unless you're rich and can buy a plane, or live in Europe where there's working trains. You have to drive, alright? So kiss your fear of death goodnight, and gain yourself a healthy fear of life. I hope that helps, Daddy. I hope that helps, Chris. Oh man, that was a weird slip of the tongue, huh? Oh, anyway, folks, I have no idea where we have ended up now. In fact, if you ask my opinion, I might say we're driving straight into Disturbia. But seriously, we are in the middle of nowhere. I know I promised Debbie I would keep my phone off during the trip out of respect for the driver's fear of Bluetooth signals, but I'm going to have to turn it back on and attempt a covert call to Debbie to see if she has any updates. So hold on, folks. Oh, that's weird. Hey, driver, I think the phone in your pocket is ringing. That's so weird. Hey, wait a minute. What kind of person with a Bluetooth phobia keeps a phone in their pocket? Debbie? This whole time? Wait, stop! No! Debbie, what are you? The trees, Debbie! Look out for the trees! Oh, thank God you stopped. Debbie, listen, I know I was a little mean to you earlier, but I only did it because you're bad at your job. Debbie, no! Debbie, you know I'm not built for nature. I'm not even built for indoors. Debbie, come back! I'm eating! I'm gonna miss my meeting! You can't leave me here! You can't. Debbie! Debbie! Oh, man. Folks, this is not great. If the quality of my audio suddenly drops, please know it's because the sun is about to set and I'm lost in the woods fighting for my life. And not because I'm a bad producer / host. What was that? What was that? Crap. Well, folks, no one is more upset. No one is more upset than me right now that we couldn't get Rihanna on the mic. Or that my producer Debbie left me to die in the woods. But you know me well enough to know that we'll be back next week with a much better show and a much bigger guest. And please, if the original content team at the streaming network is listening right now, I want them to know that it's not my fault I couldn't make it in, okay? I really wanted this thing. Okay, it's just a tree, don't worry. How about I give my pitch right now, okay? And sorry if I need to run while I'm doing it. Okay, so the show would be me, and I'm the host. And in each episode, I'd interview a big celebrity guest, but it's on TV. And oh yeah, it's a wolf. Crap. Folks, I'm about to drop this laptop so I can use both hands to swing my microphone like a sword. But before I do, I'd like to encourage any fans of the show to check out patreon.com/famouspodcast and joining one of our special support tiers. Die in hell! Die! Alright, and just as a reminder, you can gain access on Patreon to exclusive lyrics, songs, and more, as well as special episodes of Famous Podcast. And you get to support the show and its host, who is alive for the next 8 seconds. This week, Patreon supporters will have access to a very embarrassing improvised demo of Chris's listener question song. That's patreon.com/famouspodcast. And as always, please rate and review us on iTunes and anywhere else you get podcasts. No, wait, stop. I'm a huge fan of Balto. I had it on VHS as a kid. Folks, I gotta kick a wolf in the face, so I'll see you next time right here on Famous Podcast. Okay, listen, Wolf. I have nothing but respect for all of God's creatures, okay? I have always been kind to dogs. And dogs are just like you, but smaller and less scary. Wait, I have so much more to say about dogs. You're not like dogs at all. You're much bigger. I think you're great.